This demo takes you through an SSIS package that I had created. There's a separate document that goes into more detail about this project, but this video is a quick demonstration. Let's consider the business challenge of acquiring new data. Let's say at any given time your business is in the process of negotiating a new data feed with data provider, and you want to be able to quickly incorporate that data feed into your data warehouse on a regular basis. For example, you could have electricity usage data, weather-related data, or stock pricing data, and then that data is housed in your data warehouse and you run reports off of that. So in order to schedule a regular new feed and import that data file regularly into your data warehouse, you may be able to use this template that I had created. And I'm going to do a quick demonstration of that. So in my particular case, I have this feed that I've configured to process DV data. It's a data in this folder, and it's configured to take data from this drop folder and move it along. When it finishes processing the data in that file, it will move the file into the original copy folder. In the interim, there are other processes. The file is moved from the drop folder, where the file initially shows up for processing, into the processing folder. And the SSIS package takes the file from the processing folder and then it processes it, and it evaluates which rules pass and which business rules fail, and those business rules that fail are put into a separate file in the rules errored folder, and those rules that pass are candidates for import, so that those passed rows go into the rules ready folder. So on and so forth until the file is processed, and eventually the file ends up in the original copy folder. And so I'm going to quickly demonstrate. This particular feed goes into a table called the rides table, and it's information pertaining to a bunch of bicycle rides that happened in Europe for a company that rents bikes. And there's a bike type, the start time that the bike was checked out, the end time that the bike was checked out, whether this person is a member or not. The number of kilometers traveled is a calculated field. The original data source doesn't have these same sort of fields. It has different fields. So the ETL process will calculate some of this information, like the kilometers will be calculated. And I'm just going to quickly demonstrate the processing of this particular file. So if you start this ETL and it goes through. Okay, now the file has finished processing. Let's see how many rows were processed. So there's a table called import attempts, and that table gives you more information about what was done. Star from port attempts. And the last record there, let's do a sort by attempt. Order by. Okay, so this particular attempt to process that file was what resulted from the SSIS package that we ran. And you see the amount of rows that were considered good rows that passed our business rules was 84,677, and the ones that failed our business rules is 99. And there's more information about this particular run. We considered a successful run and the bulk load completed. And you can see that this is the time the whole process, SSIS process started, and this is the time that the whole process, this is the time that the load had completed, and this is the time that the business rules passed and the file was made for bulk import. So you can see that, the difference between this time and this time, it's a very short amount of time. So about 10 seconds and then 11 seconds. So within a second, it processed those 80,000 rows. And then here you see within within about a second or so, it went through that file and was able to write out a file that had the errors and write out a file that had the good rows. So it's a very efficient process. The reason why it's efficient is because of the way it was designed. All of this is configurable. If you go into the table here, it shows the configuration of my feed. So right now I only have one. It's one feed, and its number is ETL ID 1, and that's the number assigned to this particular feed. This is the path in which the file will be dropped. This is the path in which I want the engine to process the file, move it from the drop folder to the processing folder. This is the processing folder that I'm defining. This is the folder that I define to put the rows that are ready for import or they pass the business rules, put them in here. Those that fail, put them in here. And the rules ready ones that pass the business rules, and once they are imported, that file would go into the imported folder. The original file copy would go into the original copy folder. If for some reason a general error occurs, it's put into here, this particular path. And if for some reason the rules ready file, which passed our business rules, if for some reason that file failed, then we put the file into this folder. So as I have configured this, I could configure more feeds. This is just one feed. I can configure additional feeds, and then my SSIS package can be modified to also import that particular feed. So the way this package works is right now there's a variable called ETLID, and that is defaulted to 1, which means it's going to be processing ETLID 1, which is our DB feed, which is our feed here. But if I were to add more rows to this table and configure additional feeds, I can change this to 2, 3, 4, whatever I wanted, so that when I run this package, it would be processing that particular feed and not the ETL1. And of course, there's other work that has to go into it. It's not that simple because there's a C# code here that has to be updated every time you incorporate a new feed. And I'll show you a little bit of that code. I'm editing the script right now. this over here. So all of the base code is there. All of the base code is there in the row text file manager class. So that particular class controls the table driven behavior of moving file from one folder to the next, etc. And that class has to be overridden to support your specific feed. And so this class, ride file manager, is the overridden class. It overrides this particular base class. And that way I can basically limit the amount of logic that I have to write to support a new feed. And it's one of the methods in this class is process a line, which it basically takes one line of input, one line read, and it then returns a line that is going to be used by your importing algorithm when you do the bulk. All of this processing is happening in memory. So what's going on is that you read the whole file into memory, and then you process your ETL in memory, and then you write out the file onto disk, the rows that you expect to succeed and the rows that you expect would not succeed. And then there's a bulk import done. The bulk insert is done on the successful rows. And then the whole thing is made very traceable so that you could actually figure out if something went wrong. So there is a trace table that gives you information on what happened. So let's select star from import trace. And let's where attempt ID equals 85, let's say. That's the one that ties to our event. So you see the file was registered for import, successfully read file into memory. It found errored rows, and then detected rows that passed rules, finished writing file for bulk import. And then the bulk import did its thing. So I suppose I could add an additional log entry in this table, which I'd have to go back to my source code and do. But there could have been an additional log for when the bulk succeeds. All right, let's take a look at the ones that errored the rules. And this is that file here. And it shows you the row that failed. And then it gives you the reasons why it failed. It says the latitude could not be interpreted, the longitude could not be interpreted. Well, it's talking about n latitude and n longitude, which are blank, and therefore it could not be interpreted, so it failed the business rules. So notice here that it reported on every single error, so it's not going to find one error and stop. It's going to evaluate each and every single column just to make sure that it reports on everything that could be possibly wrong with the row, so that the user can address everything and not just address one thing and then watch it fail again. And then also it goes through and does that for every row in your file, and it reports on every single error it found in this file. So all of the rows that errored are in this file, and all the rows that passed will be in a file that is loaded here. And that file, once the import process succeeds, would be moved into the rules ready imported folder. And so that's what you're seeing here. And that's just a basic summary of how this SSIS package works. It's very easy to modify this SSIS package to be able to import additional feeds. And I could be able to, depending upon the complexity of that, the business rules, this could be done within even half an hour. Or if the business logic is a bit more complex as far as which rows pass versus fail, then we could set up a feed within a couple of hours to process an additional feed from a different provider.